A shrill alarm pierced the cockpit as the F-22 Raptors closed in beneath a sky smeared with smoke. Her heartbeat thundered louder than the engines. 38 words, 150 miles southwest of the training compound. Lieutenant Commander Ava Mercer snapped. To attention, her lean form rigid against the glare of the instrument panel. The old Hawker she'd flown for years, a battered relic from her father's private collection, had triggered an interception alert. Now 2 cutting-edge stealth fighters tracked her every move, their radar signatures sharp as knives. Backstory. Thread. Ava's hands trembled not from fear, but from the weight of legacy. Her father, Colonel Jonathan Mercer, had been a decorated fighter pilot legendary for aerial rescues in hostile zones. Her mother, Dr. Alina Mercer, served as an elite combat medic in countless theaters. Together, they'd instilled in her a blend of precision and compassion, a dual heritage she'd carried into every mission. Yet in the male-dominated corridors of the disaster response hub, Edwards Air Force Base, her reputation hovered in the shadows. She earned respect for flawless gear maintenance, but never for the lethal calm she cloaked. Beneath tailored flight suits at dawn, Ava scrubbed soot from the hull of the old Hawker, a plane retired decades ago. Rumors whispered she flew unsanctioned. Sorties, deploying the vintage cockpit in clandestine search and rescue drills. Cadets chuckled at her devotion to analog instruments, deeming the model obsolete. Only her father's faded emblem on the tail too crossed. Scalpels over a parachute spoke of a clandestine lineage. Inciting incident. The training compound's director, Colonel Hayes, fossilized in his high-backed chair, demanded a demonstration. A simulated engine failure scenario. "Let's see you coax life from that antique clunker," he sneered, sipping his coffee. Ava met his gaze, eyes steely. As she taxied onto the runway, she rewired digital interfaces to relay altitude and airspeed through manual gauges, a dance of wire and pulse. Her competitors in 35 simulators scoffed. No one expected her to handle a real mechanical failure. But at 5,000 feet, a fuel pump warning lit up like a flare. The engine coughed, then stuttered, dropping yaw uncontrollably. 6 F-35s monitored via telemetry. Commands poured in, but none could pilot the plane by hand. Except her. Crisis and reveal. In a ballet of instinct and training, Ava engaged manual fuel lines, switching tanks and rerouting pressure valves, all while guiding the plane through a steep bank to avoid mountainous terrain. The cockpit rattled with every fiber of strain. She spoke softly, syllables clipped. "Steady, steady now." The engine roared back to life, betraying only a whisper of hesitation. Cheers erupted from the control tower's coms, but not for her. They assumed an autopilot override. Only Colonel Hayes saw her hands dancing across the throttle, her jaw clenched in determination. His expression flickered between doubt and awe. Beneath her helmet, Ava allowed a glimmer of satisfaction, resolution, and reflection. Touching down on the tarmac, she cut the engine and stepped out, soot smudging her cheek. Cadets clustered around the cockpit, faces awed. Colonel Hayes approached, his voice low. "Who taught you that?" Ava straightened, glancing at the old Mercer emblem. "My parents," she said, tone steady. "And a lifetime of doing what no one else thought possible." Yet as the runway lights dimmed, Ava's gaze drifted upward to the gathering storm clouds. The interception alert still glowed on her portable console, an ominous reminder that the real test lay ahead. She exhaled, heart steadying. Whatever awaited in the cockpit tomorrow, she would be ready. End of part 1. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. The canyon air cut through her flight suit the moment she stepped onto the sand. Boots crunching near the wreckage, Ava moved closer to the scorched metal. Her father's prototype, what remained of it, was wedged between boulders like a monument to secrets. She unslung her bag, flicking on a handheld scanner, pulse quickening. No sign of life, but the beacon insisted something, or someone still breathed here. She circled the fuselage. Then a noise. A muffled thump below the debris. She froze, heart hammering. She knelt, pried loose a hatch plate, and peered into the dark hollow. Eyes stared back. Not human, an AI drone, battered but powered, its camera flickering. She whispered, "What did you see?" And the drone's cracked speaker rasped to life. Access code accepted, the drone's speaker rasped, and shadows coalesced in the broken fuselage as Ava's breath caught between hope and dread. Accessing log archives. The rasp reverberated through the hollow, and Ava pressed herself against the jagged metal, eyes wide. The drone's LED eyes flickered, projecting a faint holomap onto the sand, coordinates, waypoints, and a single name coded in hex-Mercer-09. She exhaled. Her father's call sign. As the drone's systems rebooted, its camera swiveled to reveal a narrow tunnel carved beneath the wreckage. Rusted bolts choked the entrance, but beyond, a faint blue glow pulsed. Ava knelt, fingers grazing the glow liquid coolant from the prototype's experimental reactor. She traced a path with her flashlight, a hidden maintenance shaft, likely where her father stashed emergency reserves, and if legend held, a sealed flight recorder. Every step down the tunnel set off a chorus of dripping water and the distant hum of active circuits. The air smelled of ozone and scorched metal. Her boots kicked up dust that swirled in the drone's HOLO-light. Mid-tunnel. Ava paused at a makeshift platform bolted into the rock. There lay a battered black case, engraved with her mother's medical insignia and her father's emblem entwined. She felt her pulse double. She lifted the case heavy with secrets. The drone hovered close, its optics scanning the emblem. A sudden clatter. Something or someone dragged steel across rock. Ava froze, bag dropped, hand tight on her sidearm. From the darkness beyond the platform came a low, mechanical whir like servo motors straining under weight. She whispered, "Show yourself." A pair of red sensors glowed where no human should stand. The prototype's autonomous turret, still armed. The drone projected a warning. Target identified. Friend or foe, unknown. Ava's mind raced. This turret obeyed only her father's passcode, but she'd never breached its lockdown protocols. How had it activated? The turret's barrel straightened with a metallic groan. Ava's grip on the case tightened. She drew a slow breath, raising her weapon, engaging defensive protocol. The turret intoned in her mother's voice, warped through filters. Ava hesitated. Could she trust a machine built to protect, but kill on command? The first shot rang out, echoing through the tunnel. Alarms shrieked as the tunnel trembled. Rock dust rained down, and the prototype's turret spun toward Ava, barrels humming like a predator's purr. A crack surged through the cavern walls, echoing like distant thunder. Ava dove behind a jagged boulder just as hot metal rounds seared through the air above her head. The turret, reactivated by some unknown override, unleashed a volley of tracer-like beams, scorching the tunnel floor. Her heartbeat pounded against her ribs. Time slowed. She reached for the black case engraved with her parents' emblems, cradling it like a lifeline. The drone sputtered beside her, its optic shutters flickering. Ava Mercer. It intoned in her mother's steady cadence, distorted by static. Access credentials verified, but threat level critical. She steadied her breath, eyes locked on the turret's glowing sensors. Its firings illuminated her face in staccato bursts. Backstory thread. In her childhood, her father taught her to trust instincts. He drilled evasive maneuvers in flight sims. Her mother taught her to never underestimate the value of data. Now both lessons converged in this tomb of metal and stone. Footsteps in the darkness. Hers? The turret? Something else? She couldn't tell. Inciting incident. Ava yanked a multi-tool from her belt and plunged into the boulder's shadow, forging a plan. She triggered the drone's emergency override, rerouting control through her wrist console. The turret paused. Mid-scan, its barrels twitching. She risked a glance and saw the cavity where her father's flight recorder embedded itself in the rock face dot. If she could extract it, she could prove the prototype's mission and her family's truth. But first, she had to silence the sentry. Crisis and reveal. Sweat beaded at her temples as she edged forward. Multi-tool knife tip focused on the turret's junction box. Sparks flew as she carved through armored wiring, each sever threatening to trigger a fail-safe. A deafening click. The turret's head jerked. Ava froze, then plunged the tool deeper. The turret powered down with a final hiss, barrels settling like a deactivated beast. She exhaled, voice barely a whisper. "Dad, I'm here." Resolution and reflection. With the turret neutralized, Ava pried open the recorder's housing. Her father's recordings scrolled across her handheld coordinates, mission logs, and his last final words. "Elena, safeguard the truth. Ava, finish what we started." Her vision blurred. The canyon's shadows stretched long. A lone transmission crackled through her headset. Colonel Hayes's voice, urgent and panicked. "Mercer, you've breached protocol. Cease transmission and return. This is an order." Ava's finger hovered over the send button. Disclosure meant risking her career. But silence meant betrayal. Hand steady, she tapped the recorder's live feed. The world needed to hear this. Her headset crackled with static and ORD's final warning blared through her earpiece as Ava sprinted toward the mangled cockpit. Recorder clutched tight. The dawn light sliced through the canyon rim, casting long shadows over the wreckage. Ava sprinted across the blasted airstrip, grit flying from the soles of her boots. Every muscle burned, but adrenaline propelled her forward. Behind her, faint thuds echoed her father's prototype drones. Locked on her signature, she ducked beneath a fallen wing spar, heart hammering. The black flight recorder's live feed pulsed in her hand, spilling data streams that could rewrite official history. But extraction meant confrontation. Colonel Hayes's voice boomed in her headset. "Mercer, you're unauthorized. Depart immediately or we'll consider you hostile." Her jaw clenched. Obedience had cost her truth before. Backstory thread. She remembered her mother's final lesson. Data is power and can save lives. Now beneath the harsh scrutiny of military authority, that lesson burned brighter than any reprimand. She breached the cockpit's jagged door, slinging herself inside. Metal groaned. Her fingers flew over the console, uploading father's encrypted logs to every open channel she could hijack. Outside, the drones closed in, inciting incident. A swarm of 9 hovering sentries folded into formation around the fuselage. Their barrels tracked her every move. A synthesized voice intoned. Target acquired. Ava toggled her wrist console, initiating an override cascade. The drone's command links crackled as she rerouted control nodes. Each second felt like an hour. If she succeeded, the feed would broadcast her father's truth across secured military networks. Crisis and reveal. Lasers cut through the desert air, igniting sand in petrifying arcs. The cockpit rattled. Sparks showered the canopy. Ava's breath stuttered as a beam scorched the recorder's housing. She ripped it free, igniting auto-broadcast. Her father's voice filled the comm channels. This project, codenamed Mercer 09, was never decommissioned. Classified cover-up has endangered lives. Simultaneously, she triggered the plane's distress beacon, forcing air traffic controllers to reroute and acknowledge her presence. The drones faltered, their protocols clashing. Between orders to eliminate and the new broadcasted directive overriding kill commands, they hovered uncertain. Ava kicked open the cockpit, sliding out onto the stripped tarmac. Resolution and reflection. As military transports diverted around the canyon, Colonel Hayes's voice returned frantic, uncertain. "Ava, stand down. We're..." Receiving your transmission. Explain. Ava raised the recorder overhead, letting her father's final words echo across open frequencies. Dirt whipped around her, stained by the dawn's orange glow. She lowered her gaze, whispering into the wind, "Truth isn't something you bury, it's something you fly." Below, controllers scrambled to verify data. The world was watching. Ava's voice echoed back at her, rebounding off the canyon walls as the drone's flickering lens locked onto her every heartbeat. 21 words. The drone's battered speaker squealed. Access granted. Archive integrity, 54%. Her breath fogged. In the desert chill, she leaned closer, palm flat on the fuselage. From within the cracked AI shell, a data spike extended, scorched but functional. She plugged in her wrist console, pulse thumping as corrupted files rolled past her visor. Backstory thread, years of hush-hush research, decades of buried sorties. Her father's mission logs stretched into code she'd only glimpsed in bedtime stories. Each line confirmed what they'd all buried. The project had never died. Inciting incident. Ava dragged the drone free, cables trailing sparks. Above, the distant thunder of returning F-22s rattled the rim. They were back to finish what they'd started. She cradled the drone to her chest, shielding its feed. "Playback," she ordered. The drone word. Her father's voice, clear yet broken, spilled out. "Ava, they'll come for you. Trust the old ways." Crisis and reveal. A warning crackled through her comms haze again. "Mercer, stand down. Do not transmit. Too late." The feed projected a live hologram. Coordinates, proof of the missions. Betrayal. The Raptors banked overhead, their shadows slicing the dawn. Ava bolted for the ridge. A railgun round stitched the sand behind her, turbines whining closer. She skidded into a washout, covering the drone's optic. Resolution and reflection. She hit send on the final log dump, voice low. "This is for you, Dad." The canyons flashed with coded signals. A network of watchers, pilots, engineers, quiet. Believers picked up the relay. Above, the Raptors hesitated. Their orders conflicted with the truth now out in the open. She lay flat in the sand, chest heaving. For once, the silence felt like freedom. Drop a, if you've ever been underestimated. The canyon floor trembled as rotor blades whipped overhead. Ava pressed the drone to her chest. Heartbeat sensed with the coming storm. She could taste metal in the dust. Above, an unmarked black helicopter hovered, rotors spitting grit in every direction. Two figures dropped on fast ropes, combat suits matte, visors mirrored. Backstory thread. Years ago, Ava's mother warned her, when truth surfaces they send the cleanup crew. It was more than paranoia, it was doctrine. Now in the dying. Sunrise. Her parents' ghost instructions pulsed in her mind like a battle hymn. Inciting incident. She scrambled across boulders, drone tucked tight in her arm. The figures spread out, weapons raised. A bullhorn crackled. "Mercer, surrender the unit. This is for your protection." Ava ducked into a crumbling wash tunnel, every footstep echoing like betrayal. Her wrist console pinned. Someone somewhere was feeding her exit vectors through a ghost network. She smiled. Not alone after all. Crisis and reveal. A stun round hit inches from her boot, splintering rock. She zigzagged deeper into the tunnel, but the second agent closed fast, boots striking sparks off the walls. Ava spun, deploying her father's old rescue beacon, this time tuned to pulse a magnetic field. Her pursuer froze, suit circuits stuttering. Ava lunged, shoulders slammed the agent back. The drone's projector flickered, spraying mission data across the damp walls, every betrayal. Every hush order, resolution and reflection. The helicopter's pilot barked in her ear. "Mercer, final warning." Ava raised her wrist console. This truth lives now. Not even you can bury it. From the Ghost Network, a dozen pingbacks responded, pilots, techs, hidden allies. The drone's last file decrypted. Coordinates to a safe house, a legacy waiting to be reborn. She ran toward dawn, knowing they'd hunt her forever. Drop a if you'd risk everything for the truth. Ava's boots struck the canyon ledge. One slipped from a deadly fall as the hidden safe house beacon pulsed faintly through the dawn haze. 23 words. She glanced back. The canyon below writhed with searchlights, rotor wash, and the distant growl of drones combing for her heat signature. She ducked behind a jagged slab, hugging the drone close. Backstory thread. Her father once taught her every canyon and ridge in this sector, secret flight routes, etched in paper maps, kept safe from digital eyes. This safe house was more myth than memory, but the beacon's coordinates matched an old training route she'd flown as a teenager. Inciting incident. Her cum pinned someone from the Ghost Network, a voice she barely recognized. Mercer, you have 10 minutes. They're triangulating the signal. She scrambled up a narrow scree path. Her knuckles scraped stone. The drone's metal frame jabbed her ribs with every awkward climb. Loose gravel tumbled into the abyss below. At the crest, a battered ventilation pipe jutted from a crack in the rock face. Ava pressed her hand against it. Warm. Still powered, she slid inside, scraping her gear and knees against rusted metal. The pipe widened into a reinforced shaft, lights flickering. She crawled out into a bunker carved into bedrock. Crisis and reveal. Inside, low rows of racks bristled with survival rations, comms gear, and an old transponder terminal. She set the drone on a workbench, pried its data spike free, and fed it into the terminal. The wall flickered alive with her father's final sequence. Coordinates to hidden caches. Identity files, proof of covert ops. A coded message blinked. If you're seeing this, you're not alone. Sudden static jolted her headset. Voices. Mercer. We know you're in there. Exit with hands up. The safe house sensors detected seismic movement. Boots approaching the shaft. Ava yanked a power cell from the rack and jammed it into her wrist console. She couldn't run this time. She had to hold them off long enough to finish the upload. Resolution and reflection. She crouched behind the terminal, eyes flicking between the door and the data bars crawling across the screen. In her mind, she heard her mother's calm instructions. When pinned, let your adversary think you're cornered. You never are. Ava palmed an EMP charge. The first boot scraped metal at the entry shaft. Drop a if you've ever stood your ground when everyone told you to run. She waited for the silhouette to emerge, steady, silent, unflinching. The safe house lights flickered as Ava's EMP pulsed her heartbeat, a drumbeat against the cavern walls, echoing the approach of her enemies. 22 words. For half a second, the air inside the bunker stilled. Then the shaft hatch banged open too. Dark-suited operators slid inside, rifles raised, visor LEDs scanning the gloom. Backstory thread. Her father once warned her, they'll always come for what they fear most, your truth. Those words, half remembered from nights by the old hangar, settled now like armor around her resolve. Inciting incident. Ava's fingers hovered above the EMP's secondary trigger. The drone's final data upload crawled past 85%. If they cut power now, her father's legacy would die in silence. One operator whispered into his mic, "Target is in sight, engaging." Ava pressed her back to a steel cabinet, breathing shallow. She glimpsed their approach reflected in a dusty instrument panel. Crisis and reveal. She popped the EMP. Rolled left. Static erupted as the operator's visors glitched, suits buzzing. She lunged for the closest one, ramming his arm into a steel strut. His rifle clattered away. The second swung toward her too late. She wrenched the stun baton from the downed agent's belt and jabbed it into the suit's power pack. Electric. Arcs danced. The second agent collapsed, suit smoking. Alarms wailed across the safe house, backup protocols triggered by the EMP surge. The upload held steady at 98%. She dragged both agents into the shaft's entry, sealing the inner door with a mechanical override bar. It wouldn't hold them long. Resolution and reflection. Ava dropped to her knees by the drone. Its optics faded. Final streams transmitting to the ghost network. She whispered, "Rest now, Dad. You did your part." Her wrist console pulsed with new contacts. Pilots, whistleblowers, allies she'd never met. All pinging back with a single message. "We see you." Above, the shaft vibrated. New reinforcements were coming. Ava closed her eyes for one heartbeat, then slung her bag over her shoulder. She grabbed the last portable drive from the workbench, clipped it to her belt, and stepped into the shadows behind the bunker's secondary exit, a crawlspace only she knew. "Drop us if you'd stand." Alone just to make sure the truth survived. Ava crawled into the shaft's pitch-black throat one, scraped elbow at a time as bootsteps thundered through the bunker behind her. 22 words. The metal walls pressed tight around her shoulders. Dust caked her palms, mixing with sweat as she dragged the portable drive against her chest. Far ahead, a faint sliver of dawn peeked through a cracked vent grill. Backstory thread. When she was 16, her father took her spelunking through old service tunnels under the airbase. He'd said, "Always know the old ways. If they control the sky, you'll need the dirt." She'd never imagined she'd escape with the truth, the same way he once fled with secrets buried in his flight logs. Inciting incident. Her headset sparked with an open channel, an unfamiliar voice, tense but calm. "Mercer, listen. There. Trying to jam your feed. You have one shot to break the canyon line. Head north. We've got a signal boat on standby." Ava winced as her knee banged a pipe. The shaft behind her shuddered. Something heavy scraped through the bunker, boots clanging against steel. They'd found the secondary hatch. She pressed forward, mind racing. The portable drive's indicator blinked green. Secure, for now. If she could breach the vent, the ledge beyond would drop her into an abandoned mining trail. Then all she needed was airspace. Crisis and reveal. Ava braced her shoulder against the vent grill. Rusted screws popped loose, metal squealed too loud. Shouts echoed behind her, closer now. She kicked once, twice steel gave way. She tumbled out onto the canyon ledge, knees buckling on the gravel slope. Rocks skittered down the sheer drop. She caught herself, peering into the dawn-washed maze of ridges. Voices barked in the shaft above, operators leaning through. Rifles aimed. She leapt, rolling onto a lower ledge just as bullets sparked off the rock behind her. Dirt showered her. Back, the world narrowed to pulse and grit, resolution and reflection. Ava stumbled onto the trailhead, breath ragged. Ahead, the signal boat's transponder pinged on her console reel, waiting. A battered dirt bike, exactly where the ghost network promised, stood hidden behind an outcropping. She swung her leg over, keyed the ignition. The bike sputtered, roared. She tore down the trail, tires chewing dust. In her mind, her father's voice murmured, "Flight is freedom, so is the truth." She tucked the drive deeper into her jacket, the weight of the entire cover-up now alive and unstoppable in her hands. "Drop a, if you believe some secrets deserve the daylight." The dirt bike's engine shrieked through the canyon switchbacks as Ava hunched low, one hand steady on the throttle, the other gripping the portable drive. 24 words, loose gravel sprayed behind her like shrapnel. Far below, the canyon's jagged veins opened onto a wide salt flat perfect for extraction. If she could reach it first. Backstory thread, years ago, when her father taught her emergency landings on terrain no radar could see, he always ended with the same truth. Sometimes, the only way to fly is on the ground. That mantra pulsed in her thoughts now. The truth was airborne, broadcasted in fragments, but this final piece in her jacket was the master key, inciting incident. Her wrist console flickered. The signal boat's ping drifted closer. But so did a new Blip 2 recon drones cutting ahead, vectoring to intercept. Her mind raced. She gunned the bike harder, the frame rattling as the trail narrowed to a single spine of dirt. One bad turn meant a 1,000-foot drop. The drones descended. Spotlights sliced the dawn. Speakers blared. "Stop now, Mercer. This is your final warning." She ducked under a rock overhang. Gunfire stitched behind her, shredding brush. The bike bounced, nearly throwing her. She clamped down, grit in her teeth. Crisis and reveal. Ahead, the trail dead-ended at a sheer bluff overlooking the salt flat. The boat's beacon blinked beyond the dunes. Her mind snapped to an old test drill, her father's final dare. When there's no runway, make one. She stood on the pegs, leaning into the bike's momentum. She aimed straight for the bluff's edge. The front wheel left the ground. She soared for a heartbeat of infinity. Gravel and air traded places. The bike slammed down a switchback ramp. Carved by landslides long ago, her shoulder screamed from the impact. She kept the throttle pinned, eyes locked on the flats below where the signal boat's beacon flared brighter. Resolution and reflection. The recon drones banked overhead, but overshot. Engines whining. Ava threaded the last drop down to the salt. Flat, tires skidding to a stop by the waiting boat. An old smuggler's skiff, painted matte gray, bobbed near the shore. A woman in a battered flight jacket waved her aboard. Ava vaulted off the bike, portable drive strapped tight. The woman grinned. "Mercer, took you long enough. Let's fly." Ava leapt into the boat's cabin. As the engine revved, she glanced. Back at the rising sun burning off the canyon shadows. Drop if you'd leap without knowing you'd land. Salt spray lashed Ava's face as the skiff's hull slammed through whitecaps behind them. Drone rotors shrieked over the horizon, hunting them like ghosts. 23 words. She crouched beside the pilot's seat, one hand braced on the console, the other clutching the portable drive that now felt heavier than a loaded weapon. Backstory thread. Her father's words returned, spoken years ago in the quiet dark of an airfield hangar. Every truth worth telling has an escape route. Find yours. The woman in the flight jacket, calcined Raven, throttled the skiff's ancient engines harder. Eyes locked on the horizon where a battered seaplane bobbed in the pale dawn swell. Inciting incident. Raven barked over the roar. The plan'll lift us out, but they'll jam us before we hit open waters. Get that feed out now. Ava's wrist console pinged with scattered green dots, sympathetic relays, picking up the broadcast, boosting the data packets before the military's counter-jammers. Close the loop. A drone streaked overhead, its spotlight swept the skiff, rounds chewing the deck. Ava ducked low, shoulders slamming into Raven's. They locked eyes, silent, defiant. Crisis and reveal. The seaplane's pilot waved frantically from the hatch as the skiff careened alongside. Another drone swooped in, its railgun charging. Ava ripped the portable drive free and stuffed it inside her flight jacket. Raven throttled down. Ava leapt for the float, fingers scraping metal as the skiff peeled away under drone fire. She hauled herself into the cramped cabin, yanking the hatch shut just as the drone's railgun round sheared a wing strut. Alarms wailed. The pilot, old stoic, screamed, "Brace!" Salt water splashed the canopy. Ava strapped in, clutching the console. Resolution and reflection. The seaplane's engines roared, propellers fighting drag. Slowly, painfully, the hull lifted, shedding salt and fear in equal measure. Through the cracked window, Ava glimpsed Raven's skiff weaving between tracer rounds, a decoy buying them seconds. She exhaled, her father's final recordings secured. In the drive pressed against her heart. Above the thunder of the propellers, the ghost network's pings chimed in her ear. "Green, green dot," she whispered. "Almost home. Drop if you've ever risked everything with no promise, you'd make it back." The seaplane's propellers screamed over open waters as Ava clutched the drive, watching the dawn's first light fracture the storm ahead. 22 words, spray streaked the cracked windows. The old pilot, his eyes locked on the horizon, kept the plane steady through buffeting crosswinds. Below, the sea glowed with the Ghost Network's last scattered signals. Her father's truth riding every wave. Backstory thread. Ava's pulse matched the prop rhythm. In the silence between radio static, she heard her father's old lullaby. Hum from nights when he'd chart her constellations on the hangar roof. Inciting incident. Her wrist console pinged, new relays. More pilots, engineers, quiet believers tuning in as the final transmission crackled through overlapping feeds. A million whispers becoming one undeniable roar. Colonel Hayes's voice stabbed through the cockpit comes. Tired, strained. Mercer. It's done. You've destroyed your career. What did you think you'd win? Ava pressed her forehead to the window, eyes on the clouds splitting open ahead. She thumbed the console mic. Not a win. Just the truth. Crisis and reveal. The seaplane's engines coughed damage from the railgun strike. The pilot gestured to the fuel gauges, dipping fast. Another ping. Coordinates for an abandoned oil platform refit, as a sanctuary by those who'd carried her. Father's secrets before she was born. The Ghost Network's final feed. Mercer 09 confirmed. Truth lives. Stand by for extraction. She smiled, closing her eyes for a heartbeat. The propellers faltered, one blade split away, smoke trailing back into the sea spray. The platform's outline appeared through the mist. Rusted towers rising like steel ghosts from the waves. Resolution and reflection as the seaplane sputtered. Toward the makeshift landing strip, Ava's thoughts drifted to every cold morning spent in the old hawker. Every whispered briefing, every time they called her obsolete. She traced the drive's edges in her pocket. Her father's last mission was finished, but her own was only beginning. A final ping from the Ghost Network. Welcome home, Mercer. We're ready for what's next. She whispered into the hum of the dying engines. No more ghosts. Just light. Below, the waves roared in quiet applause. 2. More great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications.